Politics Not Included, where we get to know the person, not their policy. We're creating a space to have real conversations with your elected officials and election candidates to get to know them as a person first. We're hoping these conversations will make it easier to approach and engage your local leadership. Now, before we get started with today's episode, I have a couple of ground rules to cover as always. The first is, Politics Not Included is hosted by the Transparent Campaign Initiative. And in the spirit of transparency, these episodes will be published without being edited. And we're doing this to keep this platform neutral and authentic to all of the guests that we have on the show. Now, what that means for you as a listener or a viewer if you're on our YouTube channel is that you may witness or hear longer pauses than anticipated or some bloopers or stumbling over words. And that's because you're watching or listening to this conversation as if it were live. You're hearing the whole thing in its entirety. And I'm excited to get to share these conversations with you in a true and authentic form. And that leads me to rule number 2, that as you're watching or listening to this, if you have any comments that creep up in your head that if you were sitting in this room with us, you may not have the confidence to say to our face, or you may not feel like the best human being if you did, I'm going to ask you to keep that in your head and out of the comments. And that's because we're just trying to have conversations to get to strengthen our community and to build each other up rather than tear each other down. And in order to do that, I think we need to keep the comments kind. Now that all of that is out of the way, let's get this show started. On today's episode, we're welcoming Scott Seel. Scott is a realtor for Alliance Realty, and he's also a candidate for the Manhattan City Commission and is seeking election this November. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit better and dive into some of your background.
Yeah.
So to get us started, you've had kind of a significant trajectory, career change, if you will. You started out in the realm of political science and then have now had a really long and successful career in real estate. So I kind of want to break down where you started and how you got to where you are today. So to get us started, can you explain why political science? You have a bachelor's in political science, right?
Yeah. Well, I started off at K-State with a double major in German and international business. Quickly figured out that was not for me, and we'll always remember meeting with my political science advisor, and he said, well, you'll never make any money, but you're doing what you love, right? So I got my degree in political science, always been interested in politics and government. So did that for a while, worked in some campaigns in Wichita and then in Topeka and at the Kansas legislature. Quickly realized that was probably not going to be a field that paid a mortgage. So was fortunate enough to work with a friend from college for 10 years, able to work from home, doing media monitoring and analysis, which still used a lot of the political science stuff. We had a lot of government clients and things like that. That field allowed the flexibility to, when we decided to move back to Manhattan, it didn't really matter where I worked as long as I had an internet connection. And then provided the flexibility that when I just kind of somewhat on a lark decided to become a realtor, I had the flexibility to do both for a period of time until my side job started getting in the way of my real job and was able to make that transition fully. And I've been doing almost 13 years now selling real estate with Alliance Realty. So.
Yeah, that's great. It's a really interesting transition from where you started to where you get to go. And it seems like that's a relatively common theme in many people's lives. As you start out thinking you want to do one thing and then life happens.
Life happens, that's right. So.
But I do want to kind of break some of those experiences down and talk about them a little bit more because it obviously shapes who you are as a person. So when you were at K-State, you interned for Representative Sidney Carlin. What are some things that you learned getting to work in that space? And have you carried any of those experiences with you through today?
Yeah, for sure. So I think a lot of the things that I learned, and most of the real heavy lifting and work in lawmaking happens, in committee meetings and behind the scenes. Not as much on the, actually on the floor, like what if you watch C-SPAN or whatever in Congress, there's not, that's not really where things happen. but learned just all about how just the laws work, really, and just the lawmaking process and what gets considered, and kind of learning about the unintended consequences that you have to think about, and thinking about, okay, if we do this, that feels like it accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish, but what are the pitfalls? What are all the different things that we need to keep in consideration to make sure that we're not creating a new problem by trying to solve this problem? So really helped learn about problem solving from a policy perspective, but also enabled me to watch other public servants who were doing it the way that I knew I wanted to do it and wanted it to be done, as far as just putting ego aside, putting credit aside, and just trying to get stuff done.
So how did you get involved in that in the first place? Like, is it something you applied to do, or?
Yeah, it was a class at K-State, the internship class, but through working on campaigns and such, I had gotten to know Representative Carlin and knew her already before I became her intern. So that's how, if I could have just taken the class and just been assigned to a representative as an intern, but I was specifically Representative Carlin's intern because I had worked with her and had a relationship with her already.
Yeah, that's a really cool experience.
Yeah.
And then also at K-State, you worked on the Collegian, and you had different roles, ultimately ending in editor-in-chief.
I was the editor-in-chief for the summer 2005 Collegian. The biggest impact on my life, the Collegian, is I joke that I ended up marrying my boss at the Collegian. So that was probably the biggest thing. But honestly, as far as city commission goes, one of my beats, I was the kind of government reporter, so I covered student senate, but I also covered the Manhattan City Commission. So for 2 years in my late teens and early 20s, I was going to city commission meetings every week and writing about what the city commission did for the papers. So that's kind of how I knew this was something that I was interested in doing, is because I was joked there's something wrong with me. I'm a giant nerd, and I had so much fun going to the city commission meetings and just listening to what they do and learning about what they do. And most people find it excruciatingly dull, but I enjoy it thoroughly. So I knew for a long time that at some point in my life I wanted to do this. So
you enjoyed that from the start.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
From the first time you experienced it.
Yep.
And then after that, you had some positions with the Kansas Democratic Party and the Senate Minority Leader. So what were you doing in those roles, and you're building on your previous experiences?
Yeah, for sure. So for the Kansas Democratic Party, I worked in Wichita registering people to vote and leading that process in 2006, and then went on to be research and media analysis, learning about other candidates and trying to find some ways that we could identify where it was always from a policy perspective of trying to find where we could make policy differentiations. So did media analysis as well, which transitioned into my other job of working, kind of combining the media and the political science angle of that. So. And then the legislature, I worked for Senator Anthony Hensley, who at the time was the longest serving legislator in the history of the state of Kansas. He was serving as Senate Minority Leader at that time. And so I had a couple of jobs. I was, originally my job was agenda clerk was my title. And so it's basically I would get the agenda of what bills we're going to talk about on that day in session. And I would be in charge of compiling kind of a summary document for the senators this is what this bill is, this is what it does, this is the fiscal note, how much it's going to cost, all of that, so that they had just one digestible document that they could look at and kind of get an idea of what was happening that day. And then later, as my position grew, I was also in charge of constituent response, receiving and processing constituent emails, letters, phone calls for the senator.
Were you getting a lot of those? Do you feel like people were reaching out a lot?
Yeah, and because he was in leadership, it wasn't just his constituents in his district, it was statewide because he was the minority leader. So we got quite a bit. You know, it wasn't anything overwhelming. It's state legislature, so 20, 30 a day, something like that. So
yeah, that's interesting. And then from there, so was the media analysis is it Synoptos? Is that how you say that?
yeah. It started off as Intuition, then changed the name to Synoptos. Both made up names. So basically that was, I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and read all the newspapers and produce a briefing I had a handful of clients, both government and private sector, that we always say we reduced the fire hose of information down to a cup of water. So that we were working with C-suite executives and members of Congress and things like that to say, you don't need to read all the news, you just get an email. And we had to get up at 4 a.m. so that they had it when they got to work.
Oh, yeah.
Of just, these are the 37 articles that you care about today. But yeah, that was basically, and it grew as the company got bigger, where we started doing more analysis, not just curating the news, but also telling them this is what it means for you, producing reports and things like that.
If you started at 4 a.m., what time did you get off?
I was usually done by 10 or 11, which is why when I transitioned to real estate, that was so helpful, is that I'm done with my 8-hour day by noon and can still do the other things. It's kind of one of those, I'll sleep when I'm dead type
you probably get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep.
Yeah, pretty much. And I've been a night owl anyway, so I probably should have gone to bed a lot earlier. But it also helped with none of my children, we never had to pay for a dime of daycare because Katie also worked for the same company. So it was challenging because working from home with twin 2-year-olds was challenging. I always tell people if you understand it, it would be like, imagine if you lived in the break room at your office. Because even when you're not at work, you're still at work. It's like psychologically, I don't get to go home.
Yeah.
So, I'm glad we did it that way. I wouldn't have done it any other way. It certainly had its stressors. But it was a great situation for us and allowed me to be where I am today. So
so at that time, because you have twins and then a son as well,
correct,
right?
yeah.
So you had your twins that you're balancing in the middle of getting up at 4 a.m., working with them, and then going and doing a real estate job. Good for you.
it was harrowing for sure. And Katie, so one of her clients was the power company that services Washington, D.C. And so at the time, this is the early 2010s, D.C. had this big string of they would keep getting 30 inches of snow, and you're from that area, so you're probably familiar with it. And when the power went out, she had to get up even earlier because they wanted at 5 a.m. Eastern to have their summary already. So she's getting up at 3 a.m. Central to produce this. So there were some moments where we kind of wondered if this was the right thing, but it worked out well. And all of that, to go back to the Collegian, is a friend we met at the Collegian that ended up getting that job and creating all those opportunities. It's amazing.
Yeah. So was that kind of in that spot, you're still in the political realm a bit?
Yeah.
Was that kind of the start of the end of that career for you?
Yeah, and I still was involved, had a lot of friends left, so I still was involved. I liked doing that because I could be involved where I wanted to be involved, not just I need a job, so you take whatever pays the bills.
Yeah.
So I liked being a volunteer on campaigns a lot more than being paid. Because if when you're paid and the candidate's annoying you, you just have to shut up and deal with it. But as a volunteer, it can be like, okay, I don't want to work for you anymore. You're not doing what I want to do. So still involved in that a lot over the years, and just as an advocate. And I'm a big believer in policy. To me, the campaigns and the politics, I could do it. I could have fun doing it, and I had talent at it, but it was all a means to an end to me. The policy, getting stuff done, is what I actually cared about. And most of the people, or a lot of the people in the professional politics, the campaign side of it, once the day after election day, they're looking for the next campaign job. They never really got involved in the policy making part of it, which that's where my passion is. That's where I actually care about, accomplishing things and doing good for the community. So it was I didn't miss that part of it.
Yeah.
The politics of politics, if you will. Like
Yeah.
so much of it is about just like interpersonal, petty, beating the other people, and that just was not appealing to me. So working at Sonatos with congressional clients, we had quite a few congressional clients, and I was in charge of the government portion of the company, and so I was still involved in government and still working with government officials on both sides of the aisle, and analyzing news and telling them what doing that. And so I was able to kind of scratch that itch a little bit and still, pay a mortgage and take care of my family.
Yeah.
And then really going into real estate, a lot of the skill set involved in politics and campaigning is the same in real estate. So it ended up being, surprisingly, I did not expect that, but it ended up being a nice little segue. So
yeah. Speaking of that, tell us a little bit about how real estate even came up in the first place. Like, what was it that even brought that onto your radar? I thought a lot about, there's several moments in my life where I felt I made a decision that I felt like at the time was kind of on a lark, just like, and ended up being like these major monumental moments in my life. So Katie and I moved back to Manhattan in 2012. Katie is a Manhattan native, and you can kind of back that up to another lark decision, is just the two of us sitting on the patio at Rockabilly, and really truly out of nowhere, I was just like, let's move back to Manhattan. And she was like, let me think about it. Yes, it was a very short persuasion conversation, but so in February 2012, we bought a house. We closed on our house, and I remember noticing 2 weeks go by, and I'm still looking at houses, like online. So you already have your house.
I've already purchased. Yeah, I've already made the biggest purchase in my entire life, and we were really happy with our house. But I'm still looking.
Yeah.
And so I had lunch with our realtor at the time, 2-3 weeks after we had closed, and I just mentioned in passing, like, hey, I'm still looking at houses. Like, I just really enjoy looking at houses. And he's like, well, why don't you become a realtor? And I don't know how serious he was when he said it, but I'm just the type of person that I was like, okay, sure.
Yeah,
so I did it. And here we are, almost 13 years later. Sold, I've never actually sat down and counted hundreds and hundreds of houses, over $50 million of real estate in 13 years. And I get up every day excited to go to work. And a friend of mine asked me once earlier this year, he said, if you had all the money in the world, if money wasn't a factor in your decision, what would you do every day? And he was expecting some kind of like save the dolphins answer, but my honest to God answer is I would do exactly what I'm doing right now. And I might be a little less motivated.
Maybe not as many hours.
Right. But yeah, I just really enjoy it. I really enjoy helping people with real estate. I enjoy going to look at houses. Yeah, just a lot of fun, and it allowed everything that I enjoy today is due to that kind of just spontaneous decision.
Do you think that you would continue doing it because you like the interaction with other people, or you actually like the housing part of it, or both?
It's all of the above. I really do enjoy the housing part of it. I enjoy the challenge of generating business, and I enjoy the challenge of the negotiation process, but I really enjoy working with people. I do a lot of selling houses as opposed to buying, and that's not by design. It just kind of has worked out that way. And a lot of realtors do that because, frankly, there's more money to be made in the sell side, and it's less time consuming. But I love working with buyers so much. Like that's the part of real estate that I love, is helping people find their house.
Yeah.
And people always talk about real estate being sales. I don't consider myself to be a salesperson. I don't. People choose their house. I just am the concierge along the way. But we always say we control the process. You control the decision. They're buying the house. I don't have any investment in which house they buy. I just want them. But working with buyers, especially first-time home buyers, and getting to know them, learning about their families, learning what's important to them, what they need, what they want, and helping them find that. And again, the buying a house is almost always fun. Selling a house is almost never fun.
Yeah.
For me, for the client, I always tell people that when we start the selling process, best case scenario is this won't suck.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be fun.
Set the bar down.
We just want it to not suck.
Yeah.
You're not going to have fun selling your house. Mm-hmm. Probably are going to have fun buying your house as long as we don't have any crazy things, which we do. But so yeah, that's just, I really love getting to know people and being able to add value to their lives throughout the process. So
yeah. I'm not involved in real estate other than I bought a house one time and somebody helped me through that process. On the selling side, is there an ability to make more money just because it takes less time, or?
Yeah, and a lot of times the sell side gets paid, the split isn't always 50-50 sell buy.
Okay.
And the reason for that is there's cost involved with the sell side, right, as far as marketing and photography and all of that. The buy side, much less actual upfront cost, but it's just time. Mm-hmm. It's time intensive. You're showing houses, you're hours a day for sometimes. I mean, I just closed on a client with a client last week that was 13 months from the day we first started looking. And there's a lot of crazy things that happened along that way. There's why it took that long, but sometimes it takes a while, especially when we don't have a lot of inventory like right now, where there's a lot of hurry up and wait involved in. If you have had any kind of if you're on the lower end of the price spectrum, you're just waiting for stuff to come.
Yeah.
So it's just time intensive, and people who are just trying to churn and make as much money as they can in as little time as possible don't like messing around with buyers. But that's where my passion is, and I just have fun. It's truly fun to do.
When you're selling a house, do you interact with the other buyer, or is it just trying to get people in to see it and then the other realtor takes it from the buy side? So
it's the answer to that question has changed quite a bit just in the short 12 years that I've been doing this. The last 5 years, things are selling so quickly that honestly, the two things that I think where a listing agent actually differentiates themselves is in the photography, making sure your photography is good. 96% of people see the house online first. I think that number is actually probably higher than that. And so I always say if your house looks better in person than it does on the internet, you're out of luck. People aren't going to come see it. So photography and pricing are the two things where a listing agent is really adding value. As fast as things are moving right now, there's no secret to the marketing part of it. Is you just put it on the MLS and people see it and it sells. That didn't used to be the case. It used to be you had to work for it. And we had 30 days was considered a good period of time to sell something. Now the median days on market in Manhattan is 9. So there's not a lot of science involved. And you put it on the MLS, people see it, they buy it. But you got to price it right, and you got to make sure the photography is there. Before, and maybe feels like sometimes we're kind of getting a little bit back to that, is there's actually some strategy involved with marketing and getting it in front of the right buyers and presenting it well and pricing it right and all that. So, but actual interaction with the buyers, usually you're working with another agent. Sometimes you might have an unrepresented buyer where you're working directly with that, but most of the time it's working with another agent.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the seeing stuff online now. Like my husband and I, we bought our house without seeing it. We did like a Zoom call and our realtor walked us through, and looking back on it, that was crazy, but it worked out for us. So. It
happens quite frequently here.
Yeah, because I guess people come
between
in from...
K-State and Fort Riley, a lot of military buyers, we're coming to Manhattan on Friday, our plane leaves on Sunday, and we need to be under contract when we get on the plane.
Yeah.
And so they buy what's on the shelf. And there's not, we'll wait for a few weeks and see if something we like better comes. And then, but we also get people like yourself that we don't even have, the service member might be overseas even. We've had where they're in Germany or Poland or Korea or wherever, and they're literally buying a house sight unseen from the other side of the world.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting dynamic that you're working with.
It really is. So I always get nervous in those situations because even if I'm on FaceTime with you walking through a house, you can't possibly replace being inside the house.
Yeah.
So, but
and small details and stuff get
yeah,
lost.
absolutely. But we work with people where they're at, and sometimes they don't have the ability to be here physically, and so that just makes my job that much more important, that I'm educated on what all the things they need to be looking for, and kind of being those boots on the ground for them. So
yeah, it's an interesting perspective. And then while you have had your career, you've also served on the board, or currently serving on the board, of many different nonprofits. When I was looking at the list of just what I could find on you online, it looks like you have like a little chunk of stuff that's to do with housing and real estate, and then you have kind of a chunk that's maybe to you probably has meaning behind, but like, what are the different organizations that you've served on, and why have certain ones spoken to you to commit time to it?
Sure. Well, currently, let's see if I can even think of them all at once.
I have a list if you want me to read them.
I'm on the board of the Sunflower Children's Collective, which many people knew colloquially as CASA, and CASA is one of the organizations. And so that one is has always been important to me. I was a CASA volunteer for a while previously. It's abused and neglected children are the main service that they fulfill. And then they also have a program within that organization that does forensic interviews for children who have been the victims of sexual and physical abuse, so that they can tell their story once in a trauma-informed setting, not in a police station where they might feel like a victim, even if they're not. But most importantly, only have to tell that story one time instead of 23 different times, and just get re-traumatized every time. And then also they do advocacy in the courts for the student. They provide wraparound for the child. They provide wraparound services for the child and the family, and things like that. And then the other thing that that Sunflower Children's Collective does is the Childhood Exchange and Visitation Center, where children who, for whatever reason, typically court ordered, can only see one of their parents in a supervised setting. They provide a structured, secure place where children can still see their parent that is safe for both the child and the parent. And then they also do exchanges where, for whatever reason, one parent has visitation, but the two parents aren't able to be in the same place at the same time. And so they have a secure location where one parent can drop off, the other parent can pick up without the parents interacting. So kids are really important to me, and that sounds cliche, but so that's always been an organization that I care a lot about.
So you started volunteering there, and then now serve on the board.
Now serve on the board, correct. The volunteer, so Jamie, who you had mentioned having interviewed, is longtime CASA executive director and a good friend of mine. She had recruited me to be a volunteer, and I was a volunteer for a short period of time, but something that she had said in the training really resonated with me, is that most of the time the kids that are involved in CASA are kids that have been disappointed by every adult in their life their whole lives. And so to be a CASA volunteer, you have to be able to make that commitment and say, I'm going to be there. And it's just, as we talked about at the time, I'm just working 2 jobs. And so I kind of made the decision that at this point in my life, being a in the trenches volunteer with these kids was not in the best interest of the kids.
Yeah.
I didn't have the bandwidth to give them the attention and the capacity that they need. And so I decided not to do that anymore. And that's when they were like, well, we kind of transitioned to a board position that I feel like is better suited for my skill set, and also just the place in my life that I have to give. Previous to that, I was on the board of the Kansa United Way, which I liked because it's kind of a clearinghouse of funds for lots of different social services and things. So I enjoyed that, got to kind of, from a 30,000 foot level, be kind of involved in lots of different aspects of social services. So I served 1 term on that board. I'm also on the board of the Manhattan Area Resettlement Team, which started out in fact, this is our 4-year, today is the 4-year anniversary of the fall of Kabul. And Aaron Estabrook has been instrumental starting with his interpreter from when he was in Afghanistan, and we now have helped over 250 individuals, not all from Afghanistan, but a large chunk of them, because that's where we kind of started. These are people who helped the United States Army in Afghanistan, and their assistance for the United States government put a bounty on their heads, literally. Mm-hmm. And so once the Taliban took back over, we needed to figure out a way to get those people to safety. And so we have, through legal immigration means, through the State Department, brought over these folks who had direct ties to the U.S. military operations there and were critical to the success of those operations. Being able to bring them to a safe place, provide them services, get them back on their feet. So that's been a really important thing to me. And then we've been able to, through the leadership of some really great folks, we've been able to expand that service to not just Afghans. We have people from Venezuela, we have people from Congo and Nepal, all over the world. Mm-hmm. These are legal immigration through the State Department, through legal means, have been extensively vetted for security, for health, for all these things that are coming here and just coming to find a better life, which is what brought all of us here. So it's been a really important cause for me and something that I really enjoy doing. And it has kind of segued to the housing thing quite mm-hmm. well, because especially early when people were coming from Afghanistan, we would get a phone call that says, you have a family of 9 arriving in 48 hours.
Yeah. And
it was just scrambling. We need to find a place for them to lay their head.
Yeah.
And it ended up, K-State became a huge partner there. They had several vacant apartments in the Jardine apartment complex that mm-hmm. we were able to but the first few weeks, we're just scrambling to find landlords who are willing to donate their space. And we had several that were incredibly generous. So that was big. And then that kind of segues to my housing stuff of, Aaron and I started the nonprofit Housing MHK, mm-hmm. which kind of originally, it kind of spun out of the Afghan thing. That was the part of that. It is now a wholly owned subsidiary nonprofit of the Manhattan Housing Authority, mm-hmm. Which is how HUD has those nonprofits set up, is that it's kind of separate from the Housing Authority, but also attached to the Housing Authority. The board is comprised of majority members from the Housing Authority board. But the goal of the Manhattan Housing Authority, of Housing MHK, is to provide low-income and workforce housing for the community. And the big project that we're hopefully groundbreaking on this fall is the Sunflower Flats apartment building in downtown Manhattan at the 4th and Pierre, which will be rehousing currently in the over by Wildcat Creek, kind of behind Walgreens in West Loop. If people are familiar with that, there is an existing apartment building that's been there for years, Garden Grove, that is low income and no income senior, 55 and up. So elderly people who have essentially very low or no income are living there, and that building has flooded 3 times from Wildcat Creek, to the extent that it's a 3-story building. The air conditioners on the roof were submerged at one point. So, yes, not a safe place for people to be living. But if we can't just close it, because then we lose the funding for those units. So we need a place to move them. And so that's where and then also Carlson Plaza, which Manhattan Housing Authority owns in downtown Manhattan, is condemned and will eventually be torn down. So we're trying to sort of build this to provide that low-income, no-income senior housing mm-hmm. For people. So that's something that's of big importance to me. Also, on the city side of the boards, I served on the special alcohol board for a while, which has now been rolled into the social services board. But essentially, all the tax that's generated from the sale of liquor in Riley County, mm-hmm. or the city of Manhattan, I should say, goes into a fund that then gets spent on social services that are designed for drug and alcohol treatment
I did
and
not
prevention.
know that.
Yeah.
So all of the alcohol tax.
The alcohol, well, the city's portion of it goes to the state, and then the state brings back. So some of it, I think, gets kept at the state of Kansas level, but you pay the tax to the state. State distributes it back to the localities, but the localities have to spend it in a way that is designed to prevent drug and alcohol abuse
Okay,
and treat
yeah,
drug.
did not know that.
So the Special Alcohol Board reviews applications from nonprofits and other entities on how they want that money and decides how to distribute the money. I really enjoyed that. Was super informative and just enjoyed that part of the process. That board was disbanded, and now the Social Services Advisory Board, which is called CISFAB now, does both the social services, which is discretionary spending from the city budget, and the special alcohol, which is statutory. They separately, but the same body decides both of those funds. So anyway, and then I've also had the pleasure of being on the Workforce Housing Study Steering Committee to do the housing study that we did in 2023, I think it was. And then after that, I was also nominated by the mayor to be on I was on the committee to run the study, and then I was also on the committee to decide how we're going to apply the workforce housing sales tax dollars that we 0.25%, so a quarter cent on the dollar of sales tax generated in the city of Manhattan is earmarked for workforce housing. And so I was on the committee to kind of decide a framework of how we want to spend that money. And then I was also on the steering committee for Downtown Tomorrow, which is like the 25-year dream board plan of what happens with the downtown area. And that's more than just Points Avenue. It's a larger, but yeah.
So it sounds like you found different ways to kind of scratch the itch of getting involved in like policy at some level in many different ways.
Yep. It's always there somewhere.
Yeah.
So
you have an underlying theme for sure.
Yes, very much.
So how do you balance all of the things with the boards and the different community service and your full-time job and now running a campaign with you being a dad, being a family, part of a family too?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, how I do it. I think sometimes people probably say that I forget to do a lot of things, which I do. But I'm just I don't know if it's an ADHD thing, but I need to constantly be in motion. Like I don't idle well at all.
Yeah.
So still, I really enjoy spending time with my kids and coaching their sports teams and doing all of that. And just like you said, I don't sleep that much. I'm usually up until midnight or so and up early in the morning too. Yeah. So but I don't know, maybe it's just how I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I don't ever feel like, God, I wish I didn't have all this stuff to do. I'm doing everything I want to be doing. And then I try to be really intentional and authentic about if I don't want to do it, I just won't.
Yeah, you have to say no to something to do the things that you want to do. And is this your first time running a campaign? It
is not. I've actually run twice before. In 2012, I ran for the Riley County Commission here unsuccessfully. And then in 2010, I actually ran for the State House of Representatives when I still lived in Auburn outside Topeka.
Okay.
So both of those extremely unsuccessful.
Yeah. Do you think that having a political science background helps in trying to put together a campaign, or it's still completely just like trying to figure everything out?
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think there's an old saying in political staff work that former political staffers make the worst candidates to work for. I think there might be some degree of feeling like you know everything already and not actually knowing everything, whereas someone who's never done it before knows they don't know everything. And I also just personally, I know my biggest flaw as a candidate, and my assistant on the real estate side would probably agree with it on there too, is I struggle with delegation. I struggle with, I can do that. Why would I need to delegate that? And both okay, your time can be used better doing other things, but also I end up stretching myself too thin. And it's like, okay, I'm doing this at 75%, even though I'm capable of 100%. Could it be done better and in less time if I just swallow my pride and delegate? So that's something that I consciously struggle with. And I think that's where, to circle that back to your actual question, having been a staffer, I know what to do. I know what needs to be done, how to do it, and so I'm like, I can do that. I don't need to delegate that. I know how to do that. And okay, yes, but
Yeah, the time is valuable,
Yes,
especially with
yes.
everything else you have going
Yep.
on. It is. Sometimes you look at something and you're like, oh, I could do that in 30 minutes, and 2 hours in, you're like, you're stressed.
Right,
You
right.
shouldn't have taken that long.
Yep. So Emily, my assistant on the real estate side, is fantastic, and she's very good about, okay, why don't you let me do that? And
Yeah.
you go do these things. So
That's the beauty of working with somebody for a while. They kind of
yes.
know how to navigate, like, okay, I'm going to do this for you. Like, you say you can, but maybe let me do it instead.
I always joke it is a struggle finding an assistant, because the very skills that make them good at being my assistant also make me drive them insane.
Yeah.
It's like this catch-22 of, I need you to be good at this, this, and this, but also not hate me because I'm not good at this, this, and
Yeah.
this. So,
Compromise.
yeah.
Has any part of your political science degree shaped how you would like to govern or lead? Like, are there people that you have looked at while you were interning or watched in action
Yeah,
that
that's a really good question.
shape you?
So when I was on the Mattson show on Cayman, he asked kind of a similar question. And I think specifically when I was interning, Senator Roger Wrights from Manhattan was, I didn't really know Senator Wrights. I was just watched him, and there was a particular vote where he cast his vote, and I remember just hearing his voice, no! that it was controversial. It was for his party, for him. He was voting against his leadership in the party, and politically controversial. And I remember I went up to him afterwards, and again, I had never spoken to him before, and I just said, just wanted to tell you that I appreciated the courage that you showed to not only vote that way, but with the conviction that you did. And he said, people didn't send me up here to lick my finger to see which way the wind's blowing. They sent me up here to do what I think is right. And so that's what I'm going to do. And if enough people disagree with me, then I won't be a senator anymore. And that just really stuck 19, 20-year-old me of like, that's what I want. That's what true representative democracy should be. You want to vote, people talk about, well, that's what my district wanted. No, that's not. We are not a direct democracy. We are as citizens, sending people there to be our representatives and speak on our behalf. And so we are trusting them to make the right decision. And if then we have elections where so anyway, and then others that I like to refer to are Governor John Carlin, who's back in Manhattan now. He was governor when I was young, and has just always been what I call a true citizen public servant. And the example that I always give is about 10 years ago, I remember before I really knew Governor Carlin, walking on election day, and I hear Governor Carlin burning up the phones trying to just encourage people to vote. And it was, hi, my name's John and I'm a volunteer. There was no, I'm a celebrity. There was no, it was working still 20 years after he was out of the governor's mansion and just doing the work and with no pride or any, just pure humility, just doing the work. And I really appreciated that. And then the two other local examples that I like to give are Bruce Sneed, who was a city commissioner for a long time here in Manhattan. And just you knew that Bruce was going to think about and truly consider every issue in front of him. It was not about partisanship or ideology. It was just, what's the best thing for this city? And the other is Tom Phillips, who was the city commissioner, mayor, and then went on to the State House of Representatives. And very similar to Senator Wrights, did what he, wasn't someone who was just going to do what party leadership told him to do. He took a lot of really uncomfortable votes that it takes bravery to do. It's because you're banging your head against the wall and you're upsetting people that are on your team, so to speak. But Tom put what he felt like was the right thing to do above partisan politics. And that's kind of the way I've always wanted to be. Is I'm not afraid to make my friends mad if that's what's the right thing to do in the moment.
So it sounds like you kind of value and respect people that are willing to kind of come in the middle and maybe not just stick with status quo.
Yeah, absolutely. And but also like give everything honest consideration. And so one of the other people that I talk about really respecting is Commissioner Wynn Butler from the city of Manhattan. In terms of Commissioner Butler and I very, very, very really agreed on anything. But what I always respected him for is that he would sit down and talk to me and listen to what I had to say and genuinely consider it. And sometimes I convinced him, most times I didn't. But you walk away feeling like, okay, he's still going to do what he's going to do, but he heard me.
Yeah.
And not, this wasn't a formality. He was genuinely not only willing to, but I think enjoyed the back and forth and the intellectual exercise of considering another person's argument and then either changing your mind or sometimes at the end of it you've strengthened your opinion.
Yeah. But
it was a genuine, authentic, open-minded approach to government, and I appreciated that very much.
Yeah. I have just a couple more questions for you to go through. We're kind of coming towards the end of our time together. But you, on your website, when I was looking, you have a link at the top of your website that is to register to vote. Mm-hmm. Why was it important to take up space kind of at the top of your website where you're directing people to direct them to register?
Well, as I said, my first job out of college was going door to door in inner city Wichita registering people to vote. And I that's just been something that's really, really important to me from early days of just, when I was a kid, my parents always took them to vote with me, or took me to vote with them. Mm-hmm. And it just instilled, regardless of who you vote for, what you vote for, it's just a civic responsibility to participate in the democracy. And that's always been very important to me and continues to be. And we talk about in the philosophy that we approached our real estate business with is a philosophy of abundance, that we're, rather than scarcity, we want to say everyone should vote. And I think that even if I'm willing to take the risk that I'm registering people to vote who are going to vote against me. Yeah. Because I just want everyone to register to vote, and I genuinely believe that people, if I'm able to sit down and talk to people, more often than not, they'll end up supporting me. Mm-hmm. But if they don't, that's okay. That's the way this system is supposed to work. So people, what happens if you lose? Then I lose. It's not, that didn't used to be the case when I'd run previously. It was really upsetting, and now it's like it's okay. I don't just have a different mentality now of. Yeah,
it's interesting how you kind of evolve
in
that way.
27 or whatever I was the last time I ran. So
yeah, it's also interesting. You're like the third or fourth person that's brought up that your parents took you to vote, or as a parent you take your kids to vote. Yep. And it's kind of an interesting that seems to be an underlying theme for people that are really heavily involved. And just as a parent, I also take my kid to vote, but do you raise a voter is kind of a interesting thought process. But last question, and then I'll jump into our final three that I ask everybody is, you're now several months into running a campaign and you've run two before. What's something that you wish the public understood about running a campaign?
That's a really good question. It's not like a West Wing episode. It's not nearly as exciting and dramatic as, and maybe if you're running for Congress or the president or something, it is more like that. But it's really not all that different than what I do for my job on a daily basis. It's just meeting with people and talking to them and listening to them is really especially early on, I'm just having lunches and coffees every day. Yeah. And everyone always expects me to come to those with, what are you hoping to get out of this meeting? And I refer to it as a listening tour. I'm really I want to know what matters to you, and hear about your issues and things that are important to you. So I think it's way more of that than people realize. And then obviously raising money is part of it. I mean, I hate that it is too, but especially as we've kind of decentralized information, which we've talked about before. Yeah. And that, it costs money to be able to get in front of people. And we don't have the newspaper or the free media really anymore. The only way to get in front of people is through paid media. And so that's a big part of it, is I have to be able to raise money. I've got to be able to raise probably $15,000 to be able to do the radio ads and do the maybe mail and yard signs. I hate yard signs, but they're a necessary evil, unfortunately. So So raising money, I don't know if people understand how important that is. One thing I guess people, as I talk about it, I thought about this. People are really scared of that raising money thing, and or I'd say the first ask is the hardest, but it ends up being a lot easier, I think, than almost every candidate I've ever talked to is once they get started, they're like, oh, that's not that bad. And the same thing with going door to door and talking to voters. And again, that's my background. That's what I did professionally for 2 years, is knocking on doors and talking to voters. So comes easier probably to me, but in all my years knocking on thousands of doors, I think I've been yelled at or treated disrespectfully twice.
Wow, that's actually lower than I would have thought.
It is never really that bad. Same with that raising money. The number of calls where it's uncomfortable is way lower than you would expect.
Yeah.
And people always say, well, does it suck to call strangers and ask them for money? I was like, no, that's easy. I can call strangers and ask them for money all day because I don't care. It's calling your best friend and asking them for money that's awkward. But I think that's just the amount of it is that it's just talking to people and just getting to know people and having them get to know you, and then raising money and knocking on doors.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Well, I'll do the last 3 questions and wrap us up here.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you voted?
The first time I voted myself?
Yes.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
It was cool for me, but kind of anticlimactic. It was. My birthday is actually on Friday, so I was 17 for 2 weeks at K-State, so I was in college the first time I ever got to vote.
Okay.
So it was here in Manhattan, over at Trinity Presbyterian Church. I lived right across the street, so I just walked over there by myself and went in and voted. So there wasn't any grand fanfare or anything, but it was internally really momentous.
Yeah, the first time I feel like it's always really
for
cool.
sure.
And then why is voting important to you?
I just been, I beating a drum about talking about solutions oriented and being a part of the solution rather than the problem. And I've just been, you don't just sit and complain, do something. And voting is how we do that. And I've always been, elections have consequences. If you get beat, you get beat, and you got to eat the other person, the other side, the other position being in power for however long, but then you have to also be a part of the next round. Like we always say, you get a couple of days to lick your wounds, but the next Tuesday after election day is when we say, okay, now how do we prevent this next time? And so it just, to me, it's just you don't get to complain if you're not part of the solution.
Yeah.
So
go vote.
Yeah.
And then lastly, how can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. And then I have a website, scottseelmahk.com. Seel is misspelled in my last name. It's Seel, not like the animal. I really have kind of an open, I want to encourage dialogue. If people want to reach out to me, let's go have coffee. Even if you just want to scream at me about what an idiot I am, that's okay. That's what I'm here for. Just really want to have that collaborative, interactive relationship with the community. So,
great. Well, thanks for joining us. I'll leave us with, follow us on our social media pages for announcements for new episodes. Our Instagram is Transparent Campaigns. Facebook is Transparent Campaign Initiative. And for more information on the Manhattan City Commission election coming up in November, you can visit our website, transparentcampaigns.org, and we have a page with more information.
Yeah. Scott, thank you very much. This is a really cool thing that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.